Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and this is Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the notification bell so you can get all our updates of when we got new released videos out. Leave a comment if you want to leave a comment. Check out our website, www.legendssuperstitionmountains.com, for all kinds of other information. Dutch Hunter Rendezvous coming up the November 14th, 15th, and 16th. Got a pretty busy day on Saturday. And we're starting to plot out the terms for what we'll do for a hike in the morning. And then we'll have people all through the day. We'll take a break for dinner. And then we'll have evening guest speakers as well. So it should be an all-day good Saturday event. Welcome up Friday. Come up after 11 or 12 on Friday. Settle into camp. Stay the weekend with us. That being said and done, let's move forward this week's story. There was a story I found, and I pulled it out. And I always go through several different stories, and I was reading this story and thinking, man, I'm not sure. And then I kept reading it and thought, wow, it's quite the story. But then I went to do a little background and look up to see did this person live? Did some of this exist? Well, okay, it actually is a true story. Written by Maurice Kildare, who was a writer of many magazines and books. He also went by several other names. But he was pretty prolific in the early 20th century on writing different articles and stuff. And this story is the story of Abel Herringer's gold. Abel Herringer's a guy kind of moving out west. He gets into Colorado, brings his wife and kids, raises his kids, has some nice farmland. He's doing all right, has some cattle, and he's doing okay. They're a little isolated. He's a few days out of Animas, Colorado. Everything's pretty pleasant. Nothing really disturbing him. There's a few settlers in the area. He likes that. And then one day he has to go in for supplies. He goes into Animas. Takes him a few days to get in. He says he was gone for about a week. When he gets back, he finds his house is burned to the ground. Inside the burnt remains, he finds his wife, his 20-year-old son, and his 18-year-old daughter have been shot and killed, and they burned up in the thing. He buries them. And then realizes the Paiutes in the area are really causing all kinds of havoc. They've scalped a number of people, other people, and there's nothing going to be recompense on that. And he decides he's just going to move. He's distraught. He's torn up. He gathers up the horses he has and the cattle, and he makes a move to Utah, out by southern Utah. Now, this 200-mile trip takes him almost 4 months. Because he's just by himself. But he moves all of it, and he gets out just south of what's called Bluff, Utah. And he finds a kind of a canyon area, nobody anywhere, miles and miles around. I mean, it's kind of isolated, but there's a good little patch to build a house with some good area to garden. And it has good grass for his cattle. So he releases cattle in there. He builds a sandstone house with a flat roof. And then he goes out and with the horses brings back some big timbers and he builds a barn. He builds a corral and he starts planting vegetables, and he's actually pretty well to do between the cattle and the gardens and everything else. He starts living a pretty good life. Now, his family were killed in 1877. This is about 1880, 1881. And he's lived there almost idyllic, but he's off by himself. He rarely ever sees anyone. Some Mormon settlers come through, camp for a night, and the thing is, he just doesn't like visitors. He doesn't like people. He doesn't associate or socialize. He prefers, if he can, never to go into town. A bit like Alicia Rivas in the Superstitions, who actually did go in and sell produce and so forth. But this guy has put himself in that spot to live out his years. Well, he starts feeling sick at one point. And he's not feeling necessarily good off and on, and he knows something's up with him. Figures he needs to get some medicine, and he realizes, I need some supplies and stuff. I'm going to have to make a trip soon. But during this period, he loses a cow up in a canyon. He goes up in the canyon to find the cow, and along there he finds this dirty quartz rock in the bed along the canyon base. And he's looking at it while he's looking for the cow, and he sees like almost pencil lead, buttery looking stuff. And he's not a prospector. He's thinking, is this gold? So he starts picking it out, and he's looking at it, and he goes, huh. Well, he picks out enough to fill a pocket full, finds his cow, brings it back to the house, and then settles in and thinks about it. Now his problem is, if he goes into town to get supplies with the gold, he's worried because he's like, man, I don't want people out here searching for gold because I like it. It's peaceful. It's quiet. Nobody bothers me. So he decided, I'm going to go up and see what there is and try to kind of cover it up. So he goes up, and what he does for the next 2 months is he works about a half-mile stretch along this cliff base. And he's working in this quartz, and he's cleaning out the gold, and he's putting it in sacks. And he said it literally would just pull out of the quartz. It was really easy pickings. And he said he didn't know how much deeper it could go back in. He was just taking the easy stuff off the surfaces. He gets all these cloth-like food bags, meal bags, beans, and stuff. He takes all these bags, flour, and he fills them with gold, and then he buries it in his house in the floor, in the dirt. Then he goes back and spends some time shoveling up the dirt and rocks up over where he'd been working and stuff. He never would work more than 3-4 feet and then try to cover it up. And the whole time, nothing ever happens. He never hears anybody. He just kind of lets things go. And he thinks, okay, I got it all covered up. But he doesn't know what to do with the gold. He's trying to figure out, I got all this gold, and it was about $100,000 worth of gold in bags. But he's afraid to spend it because he thinks he'll bring a gold rush and ruin his peace. So he's meandering all one night, and he's getting increasingly paranoid because the gold now is kind of praying that people are going to come in looking for gold and stuff. He hears a bunch of voices. Sounds like people singing and stuff. He gets up at night. He goes up into this canyon. He finds it's a lot further than he realized. And he finds a bunch of Paiutes in there, about 20 of them. And he said he got up close, and he was watching them through the brush. And he said it was the weirdest thing. They brought a horse out in the center. They slit its throat, and then it fell over, and they all just stood there silently watching it die. And he said then they just left. And he said it just was bizarre. He didn't know what kind of ritual it was, what was going on. None of them were speaking at the end. He did not understand this at all. And so for the next week or so, he's totally paranoid because he thinks the Paiute, something's going on. But he never sees him again. And it's just totally dead silence and quiet. So he's starting to feel worse and worse. He figures it's from all this digging he'd done and working with the gold, and then he has to work on his farm and cultivate and work, check his cattle. So I think it's just he's getting older, he's getting run down, and decides he's going to have to go into town for supplies. So he thinks about separating a couple cows out, take them in to sell them, and then he'll get his supplies. And he starts thinking more about selling the gold, and he realizes if I travel further, I can use the gold and save my cattle, because most of the time he's just eating his vegetables, slaughter a cow occasionally. He's living off the land, so he doesn't need much, and he realized I could be out here years of take the gold in and get the supplies of whatever else I need to, restock. Just before he decides to leave, he's out and he's working the field, and he's feeling weird because ever since these Paiutes had been showed up for that incident with the horse, he's been carrying a rifle everywhere he works around there because even though he's never heard or seen anyone, he's getting paranoid. And he's out there working the field, plowing, and he looks over and there's this Paiute, old Paiute coming up. And he sees him cross the valley up into the canyon, and he goes out there to kind of see what he's doing. And the Paiute goes up into the canyon, and he goes out to this one area where the horse had been killed. And he starts digging around in the base of the wall where Abel had covered things up. Well, Abel shoots at him, but actually misses him and kills the guy's horse. The horse goes down. The guy turns around, not knowing what to do. He freaks out. Abel then manages to reload, shoots again, and kills him. Abel covers up this other stuff, but just leaves the body and the horse there. He figures there's no one around, and he's not going to spend any more time there. He figures he's paranoid because he's thinking, what was this Paiute doing there? Realizing he can't put off the supply thing much longer, he goes into town. He actually goes all the way into Colorado, basically because he doesn't want to do anything near Bluff or any of the settlements nearby where the gold might trigger somebody who knows him. Well, when he gets into Animas, he goes to get supplies. The shop owners there recognize him. And they know he's the guy from one of the families, the settler families, that his wife and children had been murdered. And they say, hey, we haven't seen you in a long time. And he told them where he moved and all this. And they talked for a while. And they said, well, there's reparations for that. The government, you have to fill out all these forms about stuff, about when it happened and what your losses were and all this, and cattle and horses and your home. So he fills all the paperwork out, and then he trades in what gold he has. He doesn't really say much to them about it. They don't really ask much questions. They know he's a very private individual. They're very curious. Once he's resupplied, he heads home. He gets home, really checks the place thoroughly. No one's been there. There's no footprints, nothing. Nothing's moved or been disturbed. So he feels pretty good at first. He goes back, starts working in his fields. He's feeling good, starting to feel relaxed again. And then one day, this Paiute, old Paiute, comes walking across the field. And he's watching him, and he gets probably within about 25 yards, and then he grabs his rifle, raises it towards him, and tells him to stop. And they have a conversation kind of in broken English. The Paiute wants to ask him what he's doing there, and says, do you look for gold? And they kind of get into an argument, but the basic part of it is the Paiute is telling him, do not take any gold from this canyon over here. It's cursed. It's a cursed canyon. He says, if you do not know what I'm talking about, go up there. There's 2 dead horses and a dead Paiute. And finally, Abel has enough of it and tells the guy, get lost or I'll kill you. There'll be another dead Indian out here. And the old Paiute leaves. Now, he's known as William or Old Posey. He was actually something of a war chief of that Paiute group and pretty well known. Abel knows nothing of this because he doesn't get any news or anything. So this occurs. He runs into a couple people off and on. Some guys prospecting along the San Juan. Tells him he's never seen any gold. They tell him there's some gold in the powder in the river and stuff. But he keeps getting sicker and sicker. He keeps feeling worse and worse. And he realizes he'll feel better for a few days, and then he just kind of feels even worse then. And he gets to a point where he's just feverish and he's really struggling. And he ends up in bed for a day or two. He doesn't know what's going on, but when he gets up and he's able to get outside and check things, the cows have been milked, there's a pail of milk there, there's things, somebody's been there, but he can't figure it out. Finally, he's basically in bed for a couple days, and when he awakes, he finds there's a damp cloth on his forehead, there's candles lit in the room, and there's this Paiute woman in there, and he's pretty alarmed, but he's so weak, and she tells him to sit, rest, and she'll help take care of him. And she says she'll help nurse him to health. She's been out taking things from his garden, potatoes and different things, and she's been getting some milk because she's starving. She has a bad husband, he's beat her, and she ran away. She's kind of living in the mountains, but she figures she'll help him and see if she can nurse him back to health with what she knows, if he'll make sure she has food and sustenance. They kind of make an agreement. He doesn't have much choice because he's so weak. A few days after this occurs, some men come up. She warns him, says, men are coming. I'm going to hide up in the rocks. She takes off. Please don't tell anybody I'm here. These men come up, and they're from Bluff, and they say basically this guy's wife had run off. They think she might be in the area. He's telling them no. He's very, very ill, barely can stand up. He's talking to them. He notes that as ill and bad shape as he was, they don't offer to help or say, hey, sir, is there something we can do or anything for him. They basically just kind of have an attitude and then just go away. The woman comes back down, thanks him, and continues to help take care of and do the chores for him. A bit more time goes by, and then the woman again tells him there's men coming. I have to go hide. She takes off. He can't even get up at this point. He's literally bedridden. He wakes up, or opens his eyes, and he finds it's the store owners with some troopers. And they're standing in his house. And he's like, what's going on? And the store owner gets him some whiskey, which revives him, gives him a little false revival. And he's able to sit up and talk. And they said, well, they came out to visit because they found out where he's at. There's a little more paperwork so he can get his cash, his checks on his for his reparations for the house and everything before from the government. So they talk to him. The troopers leave, but the store owner guys are sitting there and they're like, Abel, you're in no shape. You're not going. There's something wrong with you. We need to take you in town to see the doctor. So they take him to the nearest town, probably Bluff, and they take him to a doctor. And they get him to the doctor, and the doctor says basically he has stomach cancer, and he's had it for a very long time. He's terminal. It's probably not going to last much longer. Well, before they left, they had to go get the horses. Abel had taken the bags of gold out of his house, ran around the backside, and buried them somewhere. The last of his strength. The whiskey probably helped. And then he put a note in the flour jar that told the Indian woman that take whatever you need, whatever you need, go back to your tribe, whatever you have to do. So he's there in about a week and in Bluff, and he's just bedridden, and he tells the two store owner guys the story because he says one of the things he wants to be true to his word is this woman did help care for him, took care of things. He wouldn't have made it as far as he did without her. She's out there. She has no place to go. He said, would you please, I'll tell you this entire story, but when you go back, find her and make sure she understands it's all okay, and then take care of her. Make sure she's taken care of. He said, promise me this, and I'll make it worth your while. And they agree. He tells them about the gold bags and everything else and where he'd been working on the gold and said, you guys, just take care of her. Make sure she has something. And she goes off. They say, fine. He dies like a day or two later. They have to wait because it's winter. The winter comes in and it's just no way they can travel to Abel's farm ranch. So they wait till the next spring, and when the next spring breaks and they're able to get out, they go out. They get up to the house and it stinks. It smells horrible. They're looking around. It looks like nobody's been around. They open the door and the smell is just absolutely awful. They find the Indian woman in there with one shot to the forehead. So someone must have come down, found her in there. She was unaware. They came up, they shot her, and just left her laying on the ground. The two storekeeper guys take her out, bury her out back in a grave, put a stone up. Feel kind of bad that, this happened. They weren't able to get back. What happened to her? They look in the flour jar. There's no note in there, so they know she got the note. They go out back kind of to what Abel kind of told them. Now, remember, he's been very sick. And they dig around. They can't find anything. They make several trips through that summer. And they don't come up with anything. They start kind of figuring, okay, well, maybe he meant here. So it's kind of like they're going around this big plot of land. Now, it's still, the place is still there. It's just ruins, but it's still there. It's well known. So they look around. The story continues to go. They don't find anything. They dig up more. So they finally go looking for this gold. And they go in the area, but they can't find anything. They're pushing the sand rocks. They can't find anything. Anything in the area worked or where it could be. Finally, the men's sons, both those men that owned the store, their sons take everything over. They continue to go out. And one day, one of the boys decides, let's just start plowing up the field back here and see what we find. And they start plowing, and it's that first day they're plowing, they find a bag of gold. It's an old cloth or leather bag full of gold. It was $8,000 in that bag. They find that bag, which causes them to tear up even more ground, of course, and but they can't find anything else. They believe that maybe the Indian woman dug it up or moved it or something else had happened. They don't think anybody else knew he buried the gold. It's off, I think it's Highway 47 out in Utah, out by Bluff along the San Juan River. People still to this day search the area, have dug in those fields and never found any more gold. They've never found the gold. But the Paiutes did say, and to this day, they still say that canyon is cursed. There's a curse in the canyon. And the Paiutes had at one time always taken gold, but that was one of the things that William, the Paiute, told them. Told them, old Posey said, anybody who takes gold from there, nothing but bad things come of them. And the store owners wondered, they didn't have no such bad luck of the gold they found in the yard, their sons, but they wondered if that could have been what got Abel, was that he had taken the gold and that finally went into town and spent the gold, and then he became ill. And the curse was there. The woman was there he left the gold and everything there for her, and then it just continues. So to this day, that's still out there. Pretty good story. I could find no other or anything relevant to the story online. It was just Maurice Kildore's story. But I could find bits and pieces in that Abel Herringer did exist, and that his family was killed, and that he did move to Utah. So there's a lot of relevancy. The cabin was there. Like I said, there's just some sandstone ruins now and a few broken timbers on the ground. But people still travel there, and he did have an allotment. So he was a real person, and the story is still there, and those two men spent their lives digging around and looking, and nothing turned up. So I hope you like that story. It was a different story, and I like the ones that are in historical context. This one is a little Colorado, but it's primarily Utah. And for anybody out in that area of Bluff, I mean, it'd be cool. Just go out, and can't believe anybody hasn't, metal detecting you think would bring it up. You almost have to wonder if someone else went out there and found it already. And, back then, $100,000 of gold today would make you pretty wealthy and wise. So there you go. There's the Chasing Legends this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Abel Herringer's Gold. Rendezvous November 14th, 15th, and 16th. Pick up a couple of the books out there. Like I said, we got Jason Fritz's Cracking the Dutchman, and it's out there. I think it's pretty much sure it's available at the museum, the Superstition Mountain Museum. I don't know if he's got it available at Goldfield yet, but you can buy it on Amazon, and it's in a hardcover and a softback. So do Jason a favor, pick that up. He was up at Moon Lake Gathering. I think he was up there, and I don't know. I think he had to go home, but I think he was up there enjoying some time. So hope whatever happened wasn't too serious and all's well with Jason and his family. Hope everything's all well with all of you. Hope you have a great rest of the week. We will see you live on Friday, because that's pretty much what we all do. There's about 500 of us don't have anything better to do than sit there live on Friday and talk treasure hunting, which is fine with me. But until the next time, always remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle, you're not. And this was Chasing Legends.